G'day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan battle video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at how you can do the Transformation Boost SBR or Super Battle Road stage completely free to play. Now you'll notice that we have indeed skipped two SBR. The one is the Giant Form SBR and the other one is the Super Saiyan 3 SBR. Now, both of these don't have a lot of options. In fact, they don't have a lot of options at all. So what I've done is I've just skipped them for now. I think possibly Super Saiyan 3 could be possible depending on a bit of luck. And I think Giant Form technically could also be possible with a little bit of luck as well. But I don't really like to rely on total RNG for these. I always feel like it detracts a little bit from like running these events when you say, oh, you can do it free to play, but also it takes you 118 different attempts where you will consume 200 different items. It's just a little bit like not disingenuous, but I think it doesn't necessarily aid people that much. So for now I've just decided to put it on the back burner, and we'll come back to it when we've got a little bit more basically. But yeah, overall the Transformation Boost one is going to be heavily Wicked Bloodline orientated. I think that's pretty apparent to most people. Transformation Boost teams have obviously a large amount of Wicked Bloodlines units, and I think that definitely does help a lot to a larger extent, especially when you look at like the team overall and just how it functions and everything like that. So yeah, I do think, to cut a long story short, that there is a little more, how can I say, synergy with the Wicked Bloodlines as a Transformation Boost team than just taking some of the other random free-to-play options. And there's some really great, really strong non-Wicked Bloodline free-to-play options. There's the Dragon Ball Heroes units, there's the Kokunsa Rosie Pepe Gals kind of combo units. Like, there are other great Transformation Boost free-to-play units. The thing is at the end of the day though, is it going to be like usable enough? I don't know. And it will lack the nice synergy that we'll have on this team, So yeah, for me, I would say at the end of the day, probably overall, definitely the best way to go with the Wicked Bloodlines units. And all the units here are pretty good. We're obviously using a Strength Cooler as the lead, which I think is the right way to go, just in general, because not only does he do high damage, but he's also got the highest overall leader skill for a lot of these units. So I think that's definitely something that I would say is not mandatory. Well, it's pretty much mandatory. Then in terms of the free-to-play units that we're using, I'm using the Physical Second Form Frieza, a great unit by the way. Just a lot of fun, at least for me. I find him to be a whole bunch of fun. He just does big damage, especially if the opposition is an attack down. He can do some really big AoE damage, and I think that's always something that I appreciate, especially from a free-to-play unit. Like, yes, he is maybe a little bit aged now, but his AoE damage is still pretty good. And he also, has a pretty useful active skill. So I like him a lot, personally speaking. I just think he's a great option to have. Then we've got the Prime Battle Frieza, just a good unit, especially when you're just looking for some raw stats and performance. He's just really solid in the first slot, this third slot. I like to use him as a floater nowadays, just because I think that's the best use of him. But he's great. Still does some pretty big damage, still greatly lowers attack and defense on his 18 key. And in these first or second slot situations, he does a great job. just being reliable. Then we have two different distinct versions of Cooler. So we've got AGL Cooler, who's okay. He gives all allies, 2 key and debuffs the enemy's attack and defense when there's a Goku's family category enemy, which is good. And he also can raise his defense as well, which is somewhat helpful. So he's not necessarily in any way bad or anything. Just takes a little bit of time to get going, which you don't usually have in SBR, but for this stage he does alright. His debuffing really comes in handy. And then we have the tech version, which is also a very good unit, also raises his defense and also is a support, which I think is really, really good. So for me, he looks really solid. Again, not anything crazy, but just very good. And also greatly lowers their attack. So between his lowering of attack, between the Prime Battle Frieza's lowering of attack, we've got the physical mechanical Frieza, who also lowers attack as well, by the way. So we got a lot of great attack lowering units, which helps a lot. Especially when you're fighting like these kind of SBR and things like that, especially where there's this one enemy at the end, a very strong, very tough enemy. Having the ability to lower their attack constantly does tend to help out a lot. It does tend to give you a lot more control over the fight than maybe you would otherwise. And yeah, I think overall it works out really well. Physical Super Strike Frieza is great, by the way. Obviously he gains a whole bunch of defense after firing his super attack, which makes him really strong, but also, like I said, that lowering of attack really does help out like a lot. So yeah, team looks pretty good. The final unit I think is the Int Final Form Frieza. Also another unit that still has his usability even to this day. It has attack and defense of 100%, he guards all attacks, and all allies get key +2 and attack and defense of 20% when there's a Goku's family category enemy on the team, and he reduces damage received by 50% when guard is active. So yeah, as long as he's facing a Goku's family enemy, he's pretty solid. I think it's just really good. And quite frankly, he also or at least to me, one thing that's also great about him is, again, lowering attack of the opposition. And Frieza's the guarding all attacks and the 50% damage reduction thing is pretty crazy. Even to this day, Frieza still just has pretty crazy abilities that are super useful. I can't really deny that. And you can see against this Mystic Gohan, keeping him constantly attack lowered makes it way simpler to take on the stage. Way simpler to take on the stage. So yeah, I think this team just works very well. There's not too much really more for me to say about the team performance. I think if you've been watching, you can see it just does perfectly fine. Obviously, we did take quite a bit of damage at some points. That is just one of those things. Free-to-play runs are not necessarily no item runs, and there's a reason why. Sometimes you just do lack some of the tools that you would usually have on a summonable team. But at the end of the day, you should be able to clear Transformation Boost with free-to-play units. And there's plenty of other great options as well. These aren't even the only ones. So yeah, overall I would say pretty good run, pretty fun team. And that's it for me. See you next time. Bye.